Dear learners, welcome you all to e-learning platform. This is week 10. In this week you are going to learn an introduction to characters and summary of 7 phases of the novel Tess of the D'Urbervilles, written by Thomas Hardy. Me, Faisal Ahmed, with you throughout this lecture. Let's begin. First of all, we will discuss about the major characters appeared in the novel Tess of the D'Urbervilles. Tess D'Urbervilles. Tess is surely the central character of the novel. Hardy makes her a heroine. Her name, formerly Teresa, recalls Saint Teresa of Avila, another martyr whose vision of a higher reality cost her life. In part, Tess represents the changing rule of the agricultural workers in England in the late 19th century. Beyond her social symbolism, Tess represents fallen humanity in a religious sense. She is the myth of the humans who suffer for crimes that are not their own. Angel Clare, the son of a person and the youngest of 3 brothers. He does not enter college despite his superior intellect. He wants to study agriculture so that he might become a farmer. Angel Clare is nevertheless dogmatic and stubborn. He has a deeply theoretical mindset. It is this quality that makes him reject Tess when he learns he is a fallen woman, because that contradicts his idealistic view of her. Alec Stokes, who later took the surname D'Urbervilles, though they don't belong to that family, aristocratic family or surname. Their real background is Stoke family or Stoke surname. So Alec Stokes, the sophisticated urban son of the blind Mrs. Stoke D'Urberville. Alec is rapacious and possessive, and the villain of the novel. Believing that his status in society and his financial situation give him the power to possess and control Tess, after he gives her a job caring for his mother's chickens. Alec is a hedonistic dandy, but after seducing Tess, he becomes Christian for a while. For a short while. When he sees Tess once more, he is obsessed by her another time. Social and historical background. The Victorian era is characterized by a very strict morality, particularly concerning the relationship between men and women. A woman was still the property of her husband, or rather, or father, and her honor was to be protected until marriage. Also, at this time, the Industrial Revolution had changed the economy significantly, and even the most rural areas witnessed some kind of mechanization. Hardy reports this technological progress while describing some strange machines such as the reaping machine. It was a horse-drawn machine that you can see in the picture on the right hand side of the screen. used in reaping again, and which is called reaping machine, reaping again, and typically reaping grain or crops, and typically equipped with a raking device that bends the grain against the cutter bar. Then the grain cut was picked up manually. The style of the novel. Hardy's writing style is quite simple. He describes the scenery in great details with a cinematic technique. Moreover, thanks to the use of the dialect, he can increase the realism of his novel. The narrator. Hardy uses the sympathetic inside view, that is to say, he is an internal narrator that describes the facts through the eyes of some character, in this case Tess, Angel, Claire, and Alec. Now we will discuss about the summary of 7 phases in the novel, from phase 1 to phase 7. These are first phase, maiden; second phase, maiden, no more; phase the third, the rally; phase the fourth, the consequence; phase the fifth, the women play phase; phase the sixth, the convert; and phase the seventh, the last phase, title fulfillment, from chapter 53 to 59. Let's summarize the whole book from chapter 1 to chapter 59. Phase the first, the maiden, from chapter 1 to chapter 11. Summary. The novel is set in an impoverished rural England, or poor rural village of England. Thomas Hart is fictional Wessex during the long depression of the 1870s of the Victorian era. Tess is the oldest child of John and Joan Darbyfield, uneducated peasants. Tess's father and mother. However, Joan is given the impression by Parson Tringham, his fellow peasant or farmer or friend, Tess's father's friend, that he may have noble blood, as Darbyfield is a corruption or just near about of the surname, aristocratic name D'Urberville, the surname of an extinct noble Norman family. Knowledge of this immediately goes to John's head, Tess's father. That same day, Tess participates in the village May Dance. May Dance is a festival which is celebrated for harvesting. In the summer season. Summer season is very exuberant and ecstatic in Europe, as most of the time of the year there is winters in most of the countries in Europe. So she participates in the celebration of in the festival Maidens, where men and women dance traditionally. She first sees Angel Clare. For the first time, Angel Clare and Tess meets one another. Youngest son of Angel Clare is the youngest son of Reverend James Clare. They are practicing Christian. Angel is on a walking tour with his two brothers, but he stops to join the dance, and partner several other girls. He notices Tess too late to dance with her. So, this is one kind of symbol for their separation at the later part of the novel. As he is already late in returning to his brothers, Tess feels slighted or embarrassed or sad. Tess's father gets too drunk to drive a load of beehives to a neighboring town that night. And so Tess undertakes the journey herself with her younger brothers. With their horse, which is called Prince. The horse name is Prince. However, she falls asleep at the reins, and the family's only horse, Prince, encounters a speeding wagon and is fatally wounded. Tess feels so guilty over Prince's death and the economic consequences for the family that she agrees against her better judgment to visit Mrs. D'Urberville, a rich widow. The rich widow in a rural mansion near the town of Trandridge and claim Keene. She is unaware that in reality Mrs. D'Urberville's husband Simon Stoke adopted the surname D'Urberville, though their real surname is Stoke. Even though he was unrelated to the real D'Urbervilles. So traditionally they are not aristocratic, whether they are financially rich. Tess fails to meet Mrs. D'Urberville, but chances on her libertine or devil or evil son Alec, who is the villain of the novel, who ruins her life. And Tess's tragedy begins when their family horse called Prince died. So Alec, who takes a fancy to Tess, seduces her and secures her a position as poultry keeper on the estate. Although Tess tells her parents that she fears he might try to seduce her, they encourage her to accept the job, secretly hoping Alec might marry her, and their daughter Tess will be the daughter-in-law of the house of D'Urberville. Tess dislikes Alec but endures his persistent unwanted attentions while earning enough to replace her family's horse. Despite his often cruel and manipulative behavior, the threat that Alec presents to Tess's virtue is sometimes obscured for Tess by her inexperience and almost daily commonplace interactions with him. Late one night, walking home from town with some other Trandridge villagers, Tess inadvertently antagonizes Cardarch, Alec's most recently discarded favorite, and finds herself in physical danger. When Alec rides up and offers to rescue her from the situation, she accepts. Instead of taking her home, however, he rides through the fog until they reach an ancient grove in a forest called the Chase, where he informs her that he is lost and leaves on foot to go to get his bearings. Alec returns to find Tess asleep, and it is implied that he rapes her. Mary Jacobus, a commentator on Hart's works, speculates that the ambiguity may have been forced on the author to meet publisher requirements and the censor board requirements and the Grundist readership of his time in Victorian era. Because in Victorian era, English people are religiously conservative. Phase the second, Maiden No More, from chapter 12 to chapter 15. Summary. Tess goes home to her father's cottage after she was raped by Alec, where she keeps almost entirely to her room, apparently feeling both traumatized and ashamed of having lost her virginity. The following summer, she gives birth to a sickly boy who lives only a few weeks. On his last night alive, Tess baptizes him herself, as her father will not allow the person to visit, stating that he does not want the person to pry into their affairs, as the son is illegitimate. The consequence of the rape. The boy is given the name Sorrow. So the name Sorrow is a symbolic or the tragedy of the novel. But despite the baptism, Tess can only arrange his burial in a shabby corner of the churchyard reserved for unbaptized infants. Baptism is a term which is used to make a newborn baby Christian at church by the father of the church. Tess adds a homemade cross to the grave with flowers in an empty marmalade jar. Phase the third, the rally, from chapter 16 to 24. Summary. More than 2 years after the Trantries debacle, or the misfortune of Tess associated with a rape and getting pregnant and giving birth to a sickly boy and then his death as well, Tess, now nearly 20, has found employment outside the village where her past is unknown. She works as a milkmaid for Mr. and Mrs. Creek at Talbot's Dairy. There she befriends 3 of fellow milkmaids, Easy, Retty, and Marian, and meets again Angel Clare here, the second time they meet each other. Now an apprenticed farmer, Angel Clare now is an apprentice farmer who has come to Talbot's to learn dairy management. Although the other milkmaids are in love with him, as Angel Clare is very handsome, but Angel Clare singles out Tess and the two fall in love. Phase the fourth, the consequence, from chapter 25 to 34. Summary. Angel spends a few days away from the dairy, visiting his family at Iminster. His brothers Felix and Cuthbert, both ordained Church of England ministers, note Angel's portion manners, while Angel considers them staid and narrow-minded. The Clares have long hoped that Angel will marry Mercy Tent, a pious schoolmistress. But Angel argues that a wife who knows farm life would be a more practical choice. He tells his parents about Tess and they agree to meet her. His father, the Reverend James Clare, tells Angel of his efforts to convert the local populace, mentioning his failure to tame a young miscreant named Alec d'Urberville. Angel returns to Talbot's dairy and asks Tess to marry him. This puts Tess in a painful dilemma. Angel clearly thinks her a virgin, and she shrinks from confessing the past. So this is an awkward situation between their relation. Such is a love for him, though, that she finally agrees to the marriage, pretending she had only hesitated because she had heard he hated old families and thought he would not approve of her D'Urberville ancestry. However, he is pleased by the news as he thinks it will make their match more suitable in the eyes of his family. As the marriage approaches, Tess grows increasingly troubled. She writes to her mother for advice. Joanne tells her to keep silent about her past. Her anxiety increases when a man from Trentridge named Grovey recognizes her and crudely alludes to her history. Angel overhears and flies into an uncharacteristic rage or wrath or anger. Tess, deciding to tell Angel the truth, writes a letter describing her dealings with D'Urberville and slips it under his door. When Angel greets her with the usual affection the next morning, she thinks he has forgiven her, thinking that he read the letter. But unfortunately, Angel did not read the letter. Later, she discovers the letter under his carpet and realizes that he has not seen it. She destroys it. The wedding ceremony goes smoothly apart from the bad omen of a cock crowing in the afternoon. Tess and Angel spend their wedding night at an old D'Urberville family mansion, where Angel presents his bride with diamonds that belong to his godmother or grandmother. Heine confesses that he once had a brief affair with an older woman in London. Tess finally feels able to tell Angel about Alec, thinking he will understand and forgive. But she couldn't realize that men and women are not the same in the Victorian era. So women's relationship before marriage are not accepted in the society, though men's relationship considered very normal before their marriage. Phase the fifth, the women pace, from chapter 35 to 44. Summary. Angel is appalled by the revelation and makes it clear that Tess is reduced in his eyes. Although he admits that Tess was more sinned against than sinning, he feels that her want of firmness against Alec may indicate a flaw in her character and that she is no longer the woman he thought she was. He spends the wedding night on a sofa. After a few awkward days, a devastated Tess suggests they separate, saying that she will return to her parents. Angel gives her some money and promises to try to reconcile himself to her past, but warns her not to try to join him until he sends for her. After a brief visit to his parents, Angel takes a ship to Brazil to see if he can start a new life there. Before he leaves, he encounters Tess's milkmaid friend Ease and impulsively asks her to come with him as his mistress. She accepts, but when he asks her how much she loves him, she admits nobody could love them more than Tess did. Nobody could love him more than Tess did. She would have laid down her life for him. I could do no more. Hearing this, he abandons the whim and goes home weeping bitterly. Tess returns home for a time, however, she soon runs out of money. Having to help out her parents more than once, finding her life with them unbearable, she decides to join Marianne at a starved-acre farm called Flincomash. They are later joined by Ease. On the road, she is again recognized and insulted by Grobby, who later turns out to be her new employer. At the farm, the three former milkmaids perform hard physical labors. One winter day, Tess attempts to visit Angel's family at the parsonage in Eminster, hoping for practical assistance. As she nears her destination, she encounters Angel's older brothers with Marcy chant. They do not recognize her, but she overhears them discussing Angel's unwise marriage and dares not approach them. On the way home, she overhears a wandering preacher and is shocked to find that it is Alec D'Urberville, who has been converted to Methodism under the influence of the Reverend James Clare. But the villain is always villain, though they sometimes for a short while turn into a good person or a pious person. Phase the sixth, the convert, from chapter 45 to 52. Summary. Alec and Tess are each shaken by their encounter. Alec claims she has put a spell on him and makes Tess swear never to tempt him again as they stand beside an ill-omened stone monument called the Cross in Hand. However, Alec continues to pursue her and soon comes to Flincomash to ask Tess to marry him. Although she tells him she is already married, he begins stalking her despite repeated rebuffs, uh, returning at Candlemas and again in early spring when Tess is hard at work feeding a threshing machine. He tells her he is no longer a preacher and wants her to be with him. When he insults Angel, she slaps him, drawing blood. Tess then learns from her sister, Lisa Lou, that her father John is ill and that her mother is dying. Tess rushes home to look after them. Her mother soon recovers, but her father unexpectedly dies of a heart condition. The impoverished family is now evicted from their home. They are homeless now, as their father has died. So all the responsibility of the poor family now came on the shoulder of Tess, the oldest daughter of the family, or oldest child of the family. As D'Urberville held only a life lease on their cottage, Alec, having followed her to her home village, tries to persuade Tess that her husband is never coming back and offers to house the D'Urbervilles on his estate. So Alec has taken an opportunity, as he is an opportunist, so he uses it wisely. Tess refuses his assistance several times. She had earlier written Angela Shazam-like letter, full of love, self-abasement, and pleas for mercy, in which she begs him to help her fight the temptation she faces. Now, however, she finally begins to realize that Angel has wronged her and scribbles a hasty note saying she will do all she can to forget him, since he has treated her so unjustly. The D'Urbervilles plan to rent rooms in the town of Kingsbear, ancestral home of the D'Urbervilles, but arrive to find they have already been rented to others. All but destitute, they are forced to shelter in the churchyard under the D'Urberville window. Tess enters the church, and in the D'Urberville easel, Alec reappears and importunes Tess again. The scene ends with her desperately looking at the entrance to the D'Urberville vault and wishing herself dead. In the meantime, Angel has been very ill in Brazil and his farming venture has failed. He heads home to England. On the way, he confides his troubles to a stranger, who tells him he was wrong to leave his wife Tess. What she was in the past should matter less than what she might become, or what she is in at present. Angel begins to repent of his treatment of Tess, bad treatment of Tess. Phase the seventh, fulfillment, the last phase from chapter 53 to 59, summary. So we have reached at the ending part of the novel. Upon his return to his family home, Angel has two letters waiting for him. Tess's angry note and a few cryptic lines from two well-wishers, Ease and Marian. warning him to protect his wife from an enemy in the shape of a friend. He sets out to find Tess and eventually locates Joan. Tess's mother. Now well dressed and living in a pleasant cottage. After responding evasively to his inquiries, she tells him Tess has gone to live in Sanborn, a fashionable seaside resort. There he finds Tess living in an expensive boarding house under the name Mrs. D'Urberville. When Angel asks for Tess, she appears in startlingly elegant attire and stands aloof. He tenderly asks her forgiveness, but Tess in anguish tells him he has come too late, thinking he will never return. She has yielded at last at Alec D'Urberville's persuasion and becomes his mistress. She gently asks Angel to leave and never return. He departs and Tess goes back to her bedroom, where she falls to her knees and begins to lament. She blames Alec for causing her to lose Angel's love a second time, accusing him of lying when he said that Angel would never return to her. The following events are narrated from the perspective of the landlady, Mrs. Brooks. The latter tries to listen in at the keyhole, but withdraws hastily when the argument between Tess and Alec becomes heated. She later sees Tess leave the house, then notices a spreading red spot, a blood stain on the ceiling. She summons help, Mrs. Brooks, and Alec is found stabbed to death in his bed. Angel, quite disheartened, is leaving Sanborn. Tess hurries after and tells him she has killed Alec, saying that the hopes she has won his forgiveness by murdering the man who ruined both their lives. Angel does not believe her at first, but grants her his forgiveness and tells her he loves her. Rather than heading for the coast, they walk inland, vaguely planning to hide somewhere until the search for Tess is ended and they can escape abroad from a port. They find an empty mansion and stay there for 5 days in blissful happiness. And the happiest 5 days in the life of Tess, as her life is full of tragedy and as well ends with tragedy, until their presence is discovered one day by the cleaning women. They continue walking and in the middle of the night stumble upon Stonehenge, the historical place which is one of the 7 wonders of the world, located in England. Stonehenge, where Tess lies down to rest on an ancient altar. Before she falls asleep, she asks Angel to look after her younger sisters. Lisa Lou, saying She hopes Angel will marry her after she is dead. At dawn, Angel sees they are surrounded by police. He finally realizes that Tess really has committed murder and asks the man in a whisper to let her awaken naturally before they arrest her. When she opens her eyes and sees the police, she tells Angel she is almost glad because now I shall not live for you to despise me. Her parting words are, I am ready. Tess is escorted to Winchester prison. Look at it. The novel closes with Angel and Lisa Lou watching from a nearby hill as the black flag signaling Tess's execution is raised over the prison. Angel and Lisa Lou then join hands and go on their way. Lisa Lou is the younger sister of Tess. And in that way, the tragedy ends. And that's for the week. Thank you very much for being with me. Bye bye.